debating whether or not January 6th was a coup or an insurrection. So yeah, this one's pretty interesting. Do you have anything you want to add before we get started, Zach?
No, we can rock and roll.
Okay, yeah, let's take a look.
In other congressional proceedings, things like voting on warrants for confirming Supreme Court justices are pretty serious too, in terms of the things Congress is supposed to do under Article 1. But the reason we don't consider those protests, even though they might have delayed the proceeding some, to be historic or serious or an insurrection, is because they never posed a threat to the stability of the United States government. In order to have an actual insurrection of the kind that you want to claim this is, you would need enormous numbers of very well-trained people who are heavily armed with serious plans to go into the Capitol and overthrow the power of the United States government. This is the kind of drama queen behavior that has dominated the...
So Glenn is playing games with words. What he's actually talking about is what it would take to have a successful insurrection. I don't know if you caught on to that trick he's using. He's not talking about what is and is not an insurrection. He's talking about what will be required for a successful insurrection. So the idea of you taking some major action against the United States government, he's like, man, you're going to have to really bring the goods, right? However, if I try to rob one of the biggest banks in this country and all I bring is a knife, it's still an attempted bank robbery. You can't look at it and say, in order for it to be a real attempted bank robbery, you'd have to come in with like machine guns and a crew of people. You have to have a getaway car. You need to have plans and maps. Listen, it's not a crime only when you do it the right way or the best way. There's plenty of idiot criminals doing it the wrong way. And when they get caught, they get charged and they get sentenced. If they were successful, they get sentenced for the crime. If they're not successful, they get sentenced for attempted whatever, attempted burglary, attempted robbery, attempted murder, right? It's not a thing that we evaluate whether you did the criminal act or not based on how good you were. That's stupid. Glenn is smart enough to know that. He's playing games because he's a partisan hack who panders to his tribe.
Where every kind of event is catastrophized to its highest extent.
So you would say that any past...
And by the way, I would actually kind of agree with Glenn if Donald Trump himself had not been trying to foment a coup behind the scenes as well. Like, if Trump had respected the peaceful transition of power, if he had admitted immediately that he lost the election to Joe Biden and ordered his supporters to behave accordingly, and then still his supporters did a riot and they still broke into the Capitol and all that stuff, then I would agree with Glenn. I would be like, yeah, it was dangerous, it was bad, but it wasn't quite a coup. Let's be honest. I mean, it was just a bunch of Trump supporters rioting and venting and being pissed off that their guy won. The fact that Trump behind the scenes was doing the fake elector scheme, was, trying to convince Mike Pence to subvert democracy and basically ordering all of his supporters to the Capitol on behalf of his lie, that to me is what cements January 6th and the entire, end of the Trump administration is 100% an attempted insurrection. I don't even really see how that's arguable.
Oh, 100%.
That's an absolute ridiculous point. Absolutely ridiculous point. Based on perhaps feelings or nothing. There is absolutely no definition of insurrection or coup that requires or denotes that the leader must be actively involved. That's just made up, right? There's no definition that says when a president tries to overthrow blah, blah, blah. No. In fact, there's several different types of coups, and some of the coups, they specifically denote that it is political elites who do it, certain factions who do it. There's a military type coup where it's the military that does it. I don't really know of any that specifically say the president has to be involved. Of what relevance is it that the president's involved? You mean to tell me if a bunch of MAGA people come up with a plan to violently keep Trump in power and Trump isn't involved, it's not a coup? Think about how absurd that is. So they go through all the motions of a normal coup, right? Everything that is in the definition of a coup, they do all of that stuff. But because Trump isn't involved, oh, that's not a coup. It's bad, but it's not a coup. Again, what is that based on? Please show me the definition that backs up that logic. Prove to me that this is not something that was just pulled out of his ass.
The Democrats are feckless and they didn't have the backbone to immediately go after Donald Trump, which was their biggest mistake, in my opinion. It doesn't negate the fact that a crime would have been committed if Barack Obama did that, and that a crime was committed when Donald Trump.
This is another absurd take. And this is straight from the Young Turks, and unfortunately, my good friends at the Breaking Points. So just stop and think about this for a second. Don't just speak, don't just go based on emotion. Take some time to use some critical thinking. The idea, and by the way, I can't stand the Democrats. I think they are frauds. I think they're a party of excuses. Republicans are the party of trolls. So the idea of them being weak and not fighting for something, listen, man, I know all about that. I'm the one complaining about that all the time. They're weak. They don't fight, right? They're pushovers. However, in this particular case, I have to separate that particular negative characteristic of the Democrats and evaluate the specific circumstance that we're discussing. And when I do that, right, when I have an independent thought, right, that is catered to the specific circumstance, that's not just tainted by my, you know, opinion of the party, right? It's not about my opinion of the party. This is about the specific circumstances. The idea that you are going to try to potentially imprison a former president of the United States of America, and you are going to do it quickly. That is absolutely absurd, especially when the former president that you're going after, is on the Republican side. The Republican Party has a massively powerful and effective propaganda machine that makes the left wing propaganda machine look like an absolute joke. Look at all the stuff that Donald Trump has done. And no matter what, they're able to just destroy it all. Oh, it's all a witch hunt. They're just trying to keep him off the ballot. Doesn't matter how bad it is. Doesn't matter how much evidence it is. You just cannot penetrate. The idea of you going after that, a massively powerful machine like that, and you are going to do it quickly, is absurd. If you're going to go after the king, you better not miss. The idea of quickly going after Donald Trump, the head of the Republican Party, a former president of the United States, and doing it quickly, that is nonsensical. You are going to be doing something that is highly divisive, right? There's going to be a lot of pushback. There's going to be extreme level of visibility, right? And you have an entire propaganda machine on the right that's going to be looking for any cracks. And they have billions of dollars, right? They have a ton of cash, right? And nothing but time just waiting for cracks. And then they jump on it, amplify it, and just completely destroy it. They are so powerful that if you rush this and made sloppy mistakes, they would be able to effectively pull independents and liberals to their side. Obviously, not all of them, but a significant portion would be pulled to their side to where they start questioning things and like, oh, maybe the right wing is correct and maybe this is just a partisan thing. You're going to go against that and do it quickly? Nonsense. Number two, one of the reasons it took so long is because of the lack of following of laws and participation of the Republican Party, Trump and his allies, not following subpoenas, obstructing, right? Operating above the law, causing this process to drag on, and all the games that Trump was playing in court, right? So even if you wanted it to be quick, which is stupid, you couldn't be quick because of all the games and tactics that Trump and his allies were using to slow the process down intentionally, right? Additionally, another reason why you can't go quick and why that's nonsense is to move quickly is to reveal your hand. To reveal your hand is to give these folks the opportunity to cover their tracks, delete records, and do a lot of stuff so that even if you do your best job, you lose a lot of information that you could use to make your case. The fact that these people operate above the law and they keep getting away with all kind of stuff, there's a level of complacency that you can leverage to your advantage doing an investigation, right? So you let them think that everything's cool. Don't worry about it. You got away. We're not going to do anything. This is America. Elites always get away with stuff. Yeah, don't worry about it, right? And while everyone is comfortable, you are behind the scenes getting records, getting evidence, getting insiders, doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes before anybody has the opportunity to start covering their tracks. Now, notice that the minute that they started revealing that they're doing this, that they're going after Trump, right? Immediately, that people started deleting stuff and protecting themselves, right? But there was a long period of time where this investigation was going on in silence. And that's the way you do it, right? This is a former president of the United States. Why would you be less meticulous than you would if you're going after, say, a mob boss, right? A CEO of a company that's doing some kind of major fraud? It is not uncommon in these kinds of investigations for there to be a very deliberative process, very slow, tedious, meticulous, right? In secret. They don't even know you're watching, right? You got insiders that are gathering evidence and you let it go on and on and on. You have enough that you could charge, but you don't charge until you build up such a strong case that you have a high level of confidence you're going to win. If you're going to come for the king, you better not miss. The idea of them going after Trump right away and quickly is absurd. It's foolish. It's illogical. It makes no sense.
Refuse to accept the results of the presidential elections. And if the one consequence for him is that, hey, you've been barred, you know how you
3-hour riot that even the FBI's informants on the ground told the FBI in real time was never intended to be any kind of premeditated violent act on the part of most people, but instead was something that happens.
Now, you may not have caught that trick that Glenn, that slippery Glenn just used. He qualified most people, right? Yes, most people did not go there planning to storm the Capitol. Most people did not go there planning for violence. It was, in fact, a mostly peaceful protest, just like most Black Lives Matter protests were, right? In these cases, typically, it is a small fraction of the group that get involved in the actual violence. And it is that small fraction of the group who clearly premeditated violence, and it was not spontaneous. What Glenn is doing is a typical magician trick of misdirection. He's focusing your attention on the fact that most people there were planning to be peaceful, and many of them did spontaneously become violent and got involved in a crowd. But what he's hiding from you by misdirecting your attention to that is he is ignoring the group of people, the very small group of people who did plan violence. And we have tons of evidence of that.
Spontaneously, as so often happens where political protests confront the police and become
Okay.
violent. I see it.
Yeah, we're both about to break in at the same time. You go ahead.
spontaneous is a bit of a stretch, Glenn. I don't know if you could call that spontaneous.
A little bit frightening. I remember those months of chaos, and that's absolutely what led to January 6th. That's absolutely what led to it. Trump's own lies and his own rhetoric. You can't just say that, oh, yeah, I don't even know why those Trump supporters were there. They all just materialized. They all were just bored that day. They were hanging out outside the Capitol, and then all of a sudden it got a little bit too hot, and everyone decided to charge. Like, no, that's not what happened.
much more akin to the kind of ridiculous example that I began by asking you, where you conceded that wouldn't be called an insurrection, than I do some kind of civil war type situation, or even a meaningful armed rebellion of the kind that happened in Russia last year, where even that was crushed in 12 hours.
So another disappointing thing about this video is the fact that it's 2024 and the Vanguard crew still don't seem to be very aware of some of the fundamentals of what happened on January 6th. And they are political commentators, and they running it as a business. They're not doing it casually like I am. So you'd think they'd be more aware of what happened than I am. But again, they seem to be similar to Breaking Point, who initially, when they made their first video, made the nonsensical point that they feel that it was not planned, it was not something that was premeditated, it was something that was spontaneous, when it was very clearly planned and not spontaneous for anyone even casually paying attention to what was going on. Now, in my view, most conservatives in this country, they will strongly disagree with what I'm saying right now, because most of them ignored most of the evidence. They didn't follow what we learned. They are still years behind on this particular story, which is why certain folks in right-wing media were able to show them old videos, old information, and make them think it was some kind of a bombshell. Oh, look at this footage that was hidden. The videos that like Tucker Carlson showed did not show anything new. The stuff he was showing was stuff that we were aware of from years ago. But when this stuff was being exposed by the people who were involved in it, by the Trump allies, by Republicans, right? When their side was exposing their side, most conservatives closed their eyes and put their fingers in their ears and didn't watch. They said, oh, it's a circus, it's a partisan this is fake, this is them just trying to, they don't like conservatives, or they're trying to go after Trump, right? They were saying all of that nonsense, meanwhile, not even looking at the evidence. So that's why years later, they're easily manipulated by Tucker Carlson, showing them old news. And here are the Vanguard, who certainly more informed than I would think the average conservative on what happened on January 6th, but yet still fundamentally uninformed. Any discussion about January 6th in 2024 that does not go into strong details about how it was premeditated is really unacceptable. It's been years at this point, and you're in the business of talking about politics. How is it that you are not more well informed about the strongest pieces of evidence that this was premeditated? I was aware of a lot of the premeditation in real time because I was paying attention, right? I saw all the people that were online posting, saying goodbye to their families, acting like they think they weren't going to come back home alive. Hashtag storm the Capitol. People going to an event that did not involve going to the Capitol, posting hashtag storm the Capitol. I mean, could it be more obvious than that? They didn't have a permit to go to the Capitol. It was not publicly announced officially that they were going to the Capitol. But somehow people were posting hashtag storm the Capitol. People had maps of the Capitol. People were stockpiling weapons. Now, the stockpiling weapons, obviously, we found out about that later on, but definitely people were openly posting about their intentions. It was very clear of what they were planning to do. So the real question is, why didn't our government do a better job of putting a stop to it? If you want to talk about conspiracy theories, there's your conspiracy theory. It's not that MAGA didn't do this. It's not that it was Antifa. It was that it was very obviously about to happen. So why didn't we do more to stop it? That's the real question. And even the January 6th hearings, which were very good, very well done, they did touch on this a little bit, but they didn't spend much time on that part. And That's the real conspiracy theory. That's the thing I think that's really suspicious. But instead, most right wingers didn't really watch the hearings at all, so they have no idea about what happened on January 6th beyond the partisan takes from right wing media. But for those of you that are not aware, and it's easy to find this information on, and I'm at this point, none of this stuff. So I did a quick check just to give you guys the meat, right? But nothing I found was new to me. Pretty much everything I found, I knew about this from years ago. Why the Vanguard doesn't know about it, I don't know. Why Breaking Points didn't know about it, I don't know. Why Glenn Greenwald doesn't seem to know about it, I don't know. But I'm going to tell you. So, evidence of premeditation, stockpiling of weapons and ammunition. I knew about that. Some individuals involved in the January 6 events had stockpiled weapons and ammunition. This includes caches found in nearby hotels and vehicles, indicating preparation for potential violence. Why are you stockpiling weapons for a spontaneous riot? Purchasing weapons and ammunition. Records show that in weeks leading up to January 6th, there was, first of all, by the way, let me stop right here. If you are a tribalist on the right, everything I'm reading here, you're going to just dismiss. It's made up. It's a false flag. Feds, planted this false evidence. All the people that I'm talking about, they weren't really, who they appear to be. They're all feds. Everything here is just feds, right? That's the thing about when you're not having a good faith analysis of something. It doesn't matter what I say, what evidence I present. You're going to dismiss every single thing, right? I'm talking to people that want to know the truth and want to understand, not to people who want to be dishonest and they want to keep in their little bubbles. They have their little security blanket where they feel safe and comfortable, right? And that protects them from uncomfortable realities. That's you. This video is not for you. This video is for people who can handle the truth. Most people can't handle the truth. Purchasing weapons. Records show that weeks leading to January 6th, there was an uptick in purchase of firearms, tactical gear, and ammunition by some individuals who later participated in the riots. So people going to the riots were buying a bunch of ammunition and riot gear for a peaceful protest that spontaneously got violent. Right. Acquiring Capitol layouts. Again, none of this is new news. This is stuff that was covered years ago. Evidence from investigations revealed that certain participants had acquired maps and layouts of the Capitol building, indicating an intent to navigate the complex during the riots. Right? We literally saw videos of this years ago, not on Fox News, we didn't see it there, of people on the phone being directed how to get through the Capitol. Right? Coordinated travel plans. Many riders traveled to Washington, D.C. Actually, take that back. That is evidence of premeditation to go there. That's not necessarily violence. I don't know why that's in there. Social media posts suggesting violence. Numerous posts on social media platforms prior to January 6th showed individuals discussing plans to storm the Capitol with a clear intent to disrupt the certification process, often using violent rhetoric. I actually care to know the truth, so unlike a lot of conservatives who have been hiding from this story for years now, as it was happening, as it was about to happen, first of all, I was paying so much attention that I actually literally gave a warning to my family members that something bad was about to happen. And one of the specific dates that I mentioned was, in fact, January 6th. I've never done something like that ever. I literally contacted my family members, warning them about January 6th. Because all the stuff I was seeing on the ground, right, me actually paying attention to what the rhetoric, I was on Trump forums, right, seeing what they were saying. And I just understand. I understand what was going on in Trump and all of these right wing influencers. I saw what was going on, and I saw where it was headed. It's pretty clear to me that something like this was going to happen. Right? Organized militant groups. Groups like the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, known for their military stance, showed signs of coordination and preparation, including discussions about tactics and formations during the event. Communications indicating conflict Preparation. Intercepted communications from some participants involved discussions on how to breach the Capitol, suggesting a premeditated plan for breaking into the building. So they were discussing breaching the Capitol before they breached the Capitol, so not spontaneous. Training exercises for conflict. Some individuals and groups engaged in physical and tactical training exercises before January 6th, indicative of preparing for a violent conflict. Weapons concealed in proximity. Investigations found that weapons were strategically placed in proximity to the Capitol, allowing participants quick access, which aligns with the planning for a violent encounter. Right? So these are some of the strongest pieces of evidence that we have that the whole thing was premeditated. But before we got this inside information, again, it was pretty clear what was going to happen. You had a bunch of people online going to an event that did not involve going to the Capitol, talking about storming the Capitol. And somehow they end up going to the Capitol and storming the Capitol. A virus spreads across the globe, and it starts really close to a lab that's doing research on that same virus. The same people who wouldn't see the points that I made here would see the point there. They would say, it's quite obvious. Virus must have come from the lab. Why else would it just so happen to have started spreading near the lab? But somehow they don't see that same logic here. A bunch of people talking about storming the Capitol, going to an event that does not involve going to the Capitol, end up going to the Capitol and storming the Capitol. Lab leak. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate Me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Comment below. I want to hear your thoughts.